Alrighty. Hello everyone. In this video, this 40k thoughts video, we'll be talking about deep strike units, giving some thoughts on deep strike as a keyword, generally speaking with the kind of units that use it and or utilize it, and my overall experiences using deep strike and dealing with units that have deep strike against my army. Once again, as a disclaimer, most of my experience has been as Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines, so take that with what you will. Some of what I say may not be applicable to your faction if you play Tau or if you play Eldar or Necrons. Some of it may not be applicable. So, as a forewarning or as a forward, I just want to get that out there. But with that, guys, I hope you enjoy the video. Deep strike units, or units that have deep strike. I think that overall they can be very useful at getting units that you have into out of reach positions. Now, that's not too different than like being able to infiltrate something at the before the game has properly started or scout moving. But I do think that deep striking a unit in on turn 3 or turn 2 or turn 3 can definitely be really useful with just getting them somewhere and they can be out of reach. Now, there's one or two things that I tend to do whenever I deep strike stuff in. That's either getting, like, as an example, getting Terminators into a ruin or terrain for secondary missions like sabotage, or getting something like Exalted 8-bound as an example into charge range to jump a knight, or to be able to get close to something that you can like really beat down. A personal example of mine of experience is like taking Vashtor the Archifane and deep striking him in close to vehicles, and then he torches them in shooting phase, and then you make a 9-inch charge and get them in, and you crack that nut like really easily. Now, in terms of deep striking units onto the board, I don't think that it's necessary. Like, you don't need to deep strike stuff in. Granted, I do think that is very match or army list dependent on, like, who your opponent is mostly. Obviously, if some armies like Thousand Suns or Grey Knights or even like Hypercrypt Necrons, you can do some shenanigans with deep striking units, or have some really nasty shooting bricks that just appear on the board and then they just don't move. They basically don't move. They just will hose things down with gunfire. Now, to that end, I do think that deep striking is a trap. I do think that as a something that you can do, it can be a trap for your units. Now, this also kind of requires you to play a little dumb or a little unintelligently, but your opponent can deliberately leave a space in their deployment zone or wherever, a space large enough for your unit, whatever you're using, to deep strike in, and then on their subsequent turn they jam it up with chaff or whatever was nearby, or they just unload into that unit with their guns or what have you, and they take that unit out. Now, that's not always a problem, but that's something to be very, very aware of. It's also, at least just from my experience, very easy to deep strike something in, and then it kind of struggle to do things. Now, granted, on the Chaos Space Marine side of my games, Vashtor has always pulled his weight. Yeah, he's more often than not died. He's taken things down before he goes down, or he's taken things with him because of Deadly Demise. On the Space Marine or Black Templar side of things, I've tried making Terminators work. Terminators don't seem to do very well. Jump Pack Intercessors, as an example, have done great. Inceptors, great. Reaver squads with the grav shoots, kind of pointless, but that was more of an experiment. But overall, I think that deep striking can be a trap, but it's all about knowing when, where, and I guess I'd say what to deep strike with, or like what to do. Now, in terms of experiences with deep strike, like using it in my armies and dealing with it, For Chaos Space Marines, as of right now, I have 2 units of Obliterators in my Chaos Space Marine army. The detachment I use is Creations of Bile, although the list is pretty. My army list for Chaos Space Marines is pretty agnostic. I could realistically take it into a Veterans of Long War detachment and use it and be perfectly fine, since I don't use any enhancements in it. For in the past, I've experimented with Chaos Terminators. I've experimented with Raptors. They're just not it. Vashtor was good as like a deep striking beat stick, but since then I don't use him like that. I have him just sit next to some Forge Fiends and buff those up and give him lone op. In my Space Marine games, whether we're talking about as Space Marines or Black Templars, I use 2 units of 5 Jump Pack Assault Intercessors. They've been great, phenomenal. They always tend to do really well, regardless if they maybe get one turn charges in and then they get kind of decked. It's been more or less fine. They tend to pull their weight, if not punch over their weight. Very good. Now, to the third bullet point of this, I've used Terminators. I very much have tried to use Terminators in both Chaos Space Marines and Space Marines. And I really want them to work. I really want them to do well. I really want them to be good. The issue I have with Terminators, along with what other people have said, when other people online have talked about, is they are just kind of too expensive for what they do. On average, Terminators, regardless of faction, are 170 points, more or a little less. Now, that would be fine and all if they weren't, I'd say, as slow as they are, and their offensive profile was a little bit better. Now, for Black Templars, since that's my more recent army I've been playing on Tabletop Simulator, they have a fairly bad ability, I would say. It's very, very particular and very niche. Now, compared to Space Marines, you would have to pay the captain tax. Now, I think that either way with Terminators as a whole, you kind of have to pay the character tax for like re-rolling charges or what have you, because that's really the only way that you can, I would say, make them better and make a 9-inch charge more reliable. Now, in terms of dealing with deep striking units, in most of my games against the Necrons, against my friend Brody, he uses 2 Hexmark Destroyers. One that he would start on the board, and the other that he would start in Deep Strike. If memory serves me correctly, he has not really experimented too much with what he runs in Deep Strike. It's usually Hexmark Destroyers, but besides that, it's basically been nothing. Against the Tau Empire, it's been 2 units of 3 Crisis Fire Knife battle suits. I have to make that distinction. I apologize. Overall, those Crisis suits or those battle suits, they did pretty well. But in the game that we played, they got stuck where they were. I had Obliterators come in and really, keep one unit stuck and locked down in one place, and then the other unit was gummed up by my Chosen with Fabius Bile. So it was just an unfortunate situation. I've yet to deal with any Deep Strike units against my friend Jack, who primarily plays Tyranids, and although I did not put it down on this list because it was a little bit too long, but also it's kind of self-explanatory, Grey Knights. In the game, I taught my friend Tyler how to play 40k. He was trying Grey Knights with a list I had made for him just to practice. It wasn't anything too complicated. That's a whole army that just deep strikes. So overall, I've had good experiences. I wouldn't say I've had too many bad experiences of deep striking. Primarily, Hexmark Destroyers are just annoying. I really don't like their ability to overwatch and hit on 2s. And if I'm not mistaken, be able to overwatch for free, even if that stratagem has been used already. Not the biggest fan of that personally. And then, from my experience with the units I've used the Deep Strike, nothing too negative or positive to say. I'd say if anything, I wish Obliterators had just a little bit more range on their guns. But besides that, overall good experiences. Nothing to really complain about or even to like write home about. But with that, guys, I want to thank you all for watching and listening. What kind of experiences have you guys had with Deep Strike units? Have you had really nutty, moments with Death Shroud Terminators, or Exalted 8-Bound, or just normal Terminators, or whatever have you? Feel free to comment down below what your experiences are with doing that kind of stuff and dealing with it. Have you struggled with dealing with deep strikes, some nasty deep strikes, or in some cases, like with Dark Angels, nasty turn 1 deep strikes with Deathwing Knights? As always, let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see more content like this in the future. Liking the video and sharing it along with subscribing do go a long way to help me out, guys, with this. You're not obligated to do that. If you don't like the content, you don't have to like it, you don't have to share it. It's perfectly fine. I understand. But with that, guys, I hope you all are having a great time wherever you find yourself, whether you're at home, at work, or at school, or you're on your way home to go relax with your pets or whatever have you. Hope you're having a great time. But if things are going poorly, or things could be going a lot better, well, I hope they turn around and get better. But until the next time, guys, I'll see you next time. Peace.